All right, let's call the meeting to order. This is the March 12th, 2025 meeting of the Rockbridge County Planning Commission. Roll call. Commission member Sabrizi.
Here.
Commission member Kramer.
Here.
Commission member Sandridge.
Here.
Commission member Whitmore.
Here.
Commission member Beebe present. Okay, in addition to citizens attending the meeting in person, citizens have several options to view or participate in the Zoom meeting webinar as described below. We'll do our best to take citizen comment remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. To join the Rockbridge County Planning Commission Zoom webinar, the link is available on the county website to copy into the address line on your browser. To join by telephone, you may dial into one of the numbers listed on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Planning Commission YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you're calling in by telephone. At this time, we will proceed with the meeting. Citizen comments. Is there anyone physically present to speak?
Let me check the Zoom. No one has their hand raised.
Okay, so do we actually close that? Do I say closed or just keep moving?
We never opened it, so we don't close it. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Gotcha. Okay. We need a motion to approve the January 8th meeting minutes. We did not have a February meeting, so.
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Okay, 2025 Community Development Committee membership staff review. Chris?
Yeah, so currently, the Community Development Committee consists of two members of the Board of Supervisors, currently Supervisor Ayers and Supervisor Lyons, and two members of the Planning Commission, as currently Commission Member Kramer and Commission Member Beebe. There's been some discussion on Mr. Kramer coming off of the committee meeting and having Tony Sabrizi join us on the committee meeting.
Do we just go for a motion on that?
Yeah, I think it'd be appropriate to have a motion. Consensus or motion would be better.
Do we have a motion to switch out Bob and?
I make a motion.
I'll second it. I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. The motion carries. Congratulations. And to you too, Bob.
Yeah.
That said, can I ask a question? I've tried to find something on the purpose of the committee online, and all I found were meeting notices. So if there is a description
absolutely.
of it.
For the public, we chatted about today, but for the public, the purpose of the meeting, as explained there in the conception of the meeting, is improved communication from the members of the Planning Commission, the Board of Supervisors, as reported on monthly updated to the coming up here. Generally speaking, we talk about the upcoming Planning Commission, past Board of Supervisors meetings, a lot of discussion on the comprehensive plan during the original conception of it, zoning text amendments, violations.
I'll learn as go. I'm just saying is that if somebody wants to attend the meeting, there's nothing on there that says what the purpose of it is that you could. That
there is no
showing the
published
public.
agenda, but with
No,
that duly
I'm just
noted
talking
for
about
sure.
the purpose.
Absolutely, we can add that to
Yeah,
the
I would
website. Yes.
Appreciate that.
All right, let's proceed with board reports. Chris?
Yeah, so we got a couple reports. Of course, we did not hold our February meeting due to the inclement weather. But going back to January 15th, 2025, the Solar Committee met in the Extension Office to discuss the draft solar ordinance. On January 27th, 2025, the Board of Supervisors held public hearings associated with the Cooter Dog Kennel Special Exception and the Perkins rezoning request. Of course, Perkins were on Route 39 and the Cooter Dog Kennel was on Sulphur Springs Road. Both of those were recommended as approved as recommended by the Board or Planning Commission, excuse me. On February 24th, it's really not pertaining to zoning, but we somewhat shepherd the applications through. The Board of Supervisors approved a Natural Bridge Farmers Market, and that is to be held at the existing Orchard Gold there on Route 11 in the Fancy Hill area. The Solar Committee had a joint work session on March 4th, 2025, and that was a joint session with the Board of Supervisors, the Planning Commission, and Board of Supervisors, Planning Commission, and Solar Committee. Thought it was a good discussion, some direction moving forward on that, and for the public. What was stated there is that the draft solar ordinance is obviously a zoning text amendment. So that will be discussed for discussion purposes at the April meeting. And at that time, the Planning Commission could direct it to be taken to public hearing. And so y'all will be required to have a public hearing, just like any zoning text amendment, and make a recommendation to the supervisors. And the supervisors will have the final authority to approve the proposed zoning text amendment. As far as the TCO meeting goes, the Tourism Corridor Overlay Board, they met on February 5th, 2025, and reviewed and approved a proposed expansion parking lot for the Blue Ridge Autism and Achievement Center. That's off of Park Place, off of Route 11, essentially by the Lehigh complex there. There was no BZA meeting in January or February. As far as the Community Development Committee, they met on February 14th. We discussed the upcoming solar discussion, the upcoming Planning Commission, the previous Board of Supervisors, Smart Scale. I think I reported to y'all that we were unsuccessful on the Smart Scale application for the pedestrian, and back up a little bit. Smart Scale is a funding mechanism through VDOT that's 100% funding. And we worked with the Timmons Group to develop a plan for improvements on the Greenhouse Road and Econo Lane area. And unfortunately, we were unsuccessful. It's 100% VDOT funding. We're in the same pool of money as the whole Commonwealth of Virginia. With that being said, we were unsuccessful, but we are exploring the possibility of applying for a revenue sharing application, which is also a VDOT funding mechanism that requires 50-50, 50 from the county or 50 from the state and 50% from others. That can include developers and the county. And then lastly, we're exploring the possibility of applying for a alternative transportation program, which changes it to an 80-20 split. So there's some real life problems out there at that intersection, and we're doing our best to address those. In fact, we had a meeting with VDOT and some corporate Chick-fil-A people this afternoon, talk about some near future improvements that may be able to help alleviate some of that congestion. Our next meeting, which Tony will be part of, will be Monday, March 17th. Those meetings are held at 12:15. Notice of public meetings, but they're held at 12:15 in this, generally speaking, in this room here.
All right. The first item on the agenda, number 6 on our format here, Nicholas and Bethany, is it IOCO? Public hearing application to amend a condition associated with a previously approved special exception permit. Chris?
That's correct. Let me share my screen here, if you don't mind, get everyone up to speed. The property, Nicholas and Bethany Iacocca, the mailing address is 1372 Rapine Road, Rapine, Virginia. Have made the application to amend the condition of pertaining to the breeds permitted associated with the previously approved special exception permit. The property located in the center of the screen here is 1492 Rapine Road. Is owned by the same people, obviously, located on the south side of Rapine Road. Property located in the agricultural and general use district. That's the A2 zoning district. Per section 603.03-5 of the regulations, a kennel is a use by special exception in the A2 district. Property is further identified as tax map 27-A-23B and consists of 1.88 acres per tax record. At the May 23rd, 2022 Board of Supervisors meeting, they approved the special exception permit as recommended by the Planning Commission on May 11th, 2022, at their May 11th, 2022 meeting with the following conditions. The development of the property for which the application is being made should be in substantial accordance with the development plan title 1492 Rapine Road Development Plan dated May 10th, 2022. Number two, breeding of limited to 2 of the following types of breeds. Number 1, golden retrievers. Number 2, Number 1, Labrador retrievers. Number 2, golden retrievers. Number 3, blue heelers. 4, Australian cattle dogs. Number E is Great Pyrenees, and the final breed is small and standard poodles. It goes on to say that the breeding and boarding operations is limited to 20 dogs total, excluding puppies 16 weeks or younger, with a maximum of 5 dogs associated with the boarding operation. All activities shall be within the existing dwelling and the area and buildings as shown on the reference development plan. Any runs off the dwelling shall be located to the rear of the existing dwelling. The pending application in front of y'all tonight is to amend the second condition associated with the types of breeds specified with the previously approved special exception permit. The request is to remove the dog breed blue heeler, Australian cattle, and Great Pyrenees, and replace the breeds with Bernese Mountain Dogs and Welsh Corgis. With that, I'd like to turn it over to landowners and applicants to explain the additional details on the application and the reasons for it.
Well, you pretty well heard the gist of it. Long and the short. The reason why we had those 3 breeds originally in the application for approval was because my brother, who lives in Kentucky, was going to move over with his family. He has sheep, and he likes to train the herding dogs. So he wanted to have that set in place if they moved over here. They didn't end up doing that. They're actually building a house now in Kentucky, and so they're staying there. And we have no desire whatsoever to raise those 3 breeds of dogs. And so, or my children, so we've kind of discussed it as a family. That is not, those 3 breeds are not something that we are interested in raising or adding to our kennel. And so we've decided, well, if it's possible, we could remove those and add something that we would be interested in breeding. And so that's really what we are seeking to do. And I talked to the landowner last Tuesday. She actually called me that her property surrounds it, Jeannie Shannon, our property there. And her only complaint was that she had to receive certified mail for such an issue. So other than that, she was completely fine. She's like, I wish that they would just let it go, whatever. But we're friends with her, so that's no problem from her. But other than that, yeah, any questions you may have, I'd be glad to try to answer for you.
How is it staffed? You got now 2 properties,
Yeah,
and you said you had somebody to run it.
Yes.
And
yeah, well, it's 0.2 of a mile away, which is very close. Jeannie Shannon owns the property between us and our residence at 1372. It's both on the same side of the road. We have gained permission from her for the last couple of years. We have a path through the woods that we walk back and forth. So we own around 80 acres as it is, with other parcels that are all interconnected. This is actually the only parcel that is not connected to our other parcels. And so it is one big conglomerate of being able to walk around and my cows are further away where I go and feed the cows than it is to walk across and take care of the dogs there at the 1492 property. So
I'm reading between the lines here somewhere. Are doodles in the future?
At one time we wanted the possibility to be able to breed doodles if there was clients that were interested in having doodles. At this time, even though we have the poodles and the golden retrievers that are approved, there's a certain level of, for breeders, it is looked down on, to say the least, for a breeder who breeds purebred goldens in certain circles to dare add a poodle into the mix. But we had the special exception and had the details just in case. But there is really no plans at all to ever actually breed doodles. So
Oh, so you don't, and that was one of the reasons, I've had some conversations with the staff and you had to make this change. It cost you $300 to do it. Maybe we don't want to limit your opportunities in the future if you decide to, what would be the term, like
Doodle it.
yeah, but I know it is. Look, I have a black lab purebred, and yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, the poodles are still on. We're just asking to remove the cattle handling.
No, I understand the change. I'm just wondering, are you going far enough with the change?
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, it doesn't really, the issue is not what is still there. I mean, as far as we're concerned, we don't care if you leave it all on and then add the 2 that we're interested in as additional. We understand that there's only 2 breeds that can be bred on that property anyway. So one way or another, you were still bound by the 2 breeds at any one time to be able to have on that property. But personally, we look at it and we're not, the cattle dogs and the herding dogs, they're not in our interest.
I understand the reason to drop it. I said I was trying to,
Yes.
you're going to be doing doodles, and maybe there's
Probably
thousands,
not,
there's
but-
thousands of doodles, but you're
Right.
limited now to and the Bernie doodles are very common,
Right.
very
Right.
common.
Yes, they are.
So that's a good one to have on your list, but there's also others that may be, I don't think you have Labrador on there.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, first on the list.
All right. Well, if you're happy with the list, I mean, I don't want to, I don't want you to have to come back next year,
Thank you. Thank you.
and pay another $300.
Right.
You all do a nice job of keeping the property clean out there as I drive by. So,
Yeah, I drive by.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Any more questions?
Just a question for Chris. I mean, obviously I remember this from 2022, but why do we say limited to 2? I mean, why couldn't they have 3 out of the 6 or whatever? You recall that, why that condition was written that way?
If I recall correctly, it was just to have the numbers of dogs, or not number of dogs, number of types of breeds associated with the breeding facility.
Okay. What 2 breeds do you currently have?
But we have golden retrievers is what we have
Just that.
right now. But looking to expand into possibly the Bernese Mountain Dogs soon, and then possibly at another time, maybe Labradors.
Okay.
We like the English Labradors, the square head ones.
Any other comments? All right. I guess we will, at this time, we will open the public hearing. Is there anyone physically present who would like to speak?
There's no one signed up, but we'll recognize anybody.
Should we check on the computer and the phone?
If there's anyone that would like to, if there's anyone online that would like to make a public comment during the public hearing portion, please use the raise your hand button now. Not seeing any, turn it back over to the chair.
All right. So at this point, we close the public hearing unless there's any more comments. And I guess I'll ask for a motion.
I make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the application to modify condition number 2 associated with the previously approved special exception permit for a commercial dog kennel in the agricultural and general use A2 zoning district be approved with the following amended conditions. And that would be breeding limited to 2 of the following breeds of dogs: Labrador Retriever, Golden Retriever, Bernese Mountain Dogs, Welsh Corgi, and small and standard poodles.
A second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Did we add the 2 that we're requesting to add on there? I apologize. That might have been an error on our part.
Yeah. That was, we good on that?
Yes.
Said Bernese Mountain Dogs.
Yep.
Yes.
I apologize.
And Welsh Corgi? Yeah.
Sorry.
Seeing.
Just
Well,
interrupting.
before we vote, one other thing too, I go back to the breeding is limited to 2 of the following breeds. Why couldn't we, breeding is limited to the following breeds? Why do we have to specify? I mean, if you wanted to have 4 different females on site, but only 2 or 3 different breeds at one time, why are we saying that? You know, it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, we certainly not reject such a granting permission of that, but I don't believe that it was this board. It was the next.
Board of
Supervisors.
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 Yeah,
did that.
Someone there was the one that wanted to put a little more restriction.
And I will say, similar, this one, the way the application was made and the way the public hearing is written, the pending application is to amend condition number 2, requesting amendment to the dog breeds associated with the breeding business. And so it is limited. It's very narrow scope of what we're acting on because of the application and because of the notice of public hearing.
You good?
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Yeah. Okay, next item on the list is USS Hilltop Solar LLC public hearing application to amend a condition with a previously approved special exception permit. Chris?
Yeah, bear with me here. Representative Mr. Dan Sapler is joining us via Zoom. USS Hilltop Solar LLC, 323 Washington Avenue, Suite 150, Minneapolis, Minnesota, has made an application to amend a condition with a previously approved special exception permit for a 3-megawatt solar facility. The property is identified as 331 Lloyd Tolley Road, Natural Bridge Station, Virginia 24579, located on the west side of the intersection of Lloyd Tolley Road and Gilmore's Mill Road. The property is owned by William S. Shepard and Jennifer K. Rattigan, 30 Appaloosa Lane, Natural Bridge Station, Virginia 24579, further identified as tax map number. I'm going to share my screen. Further identified as tax map number 113-5-D, consisting of 157.76 acres per tax records. A portion of the property is located in the agricultural zoning district, and a portion of the property is located in the agricultural and general use district. Per section 603.03-9 of the regulations, public utilities are used by special exception in the A2 zoning district. Per section 603B03-4 of the regulations, the public utilities are used by special exception in the AT zoning district. The proposed solar site is located on approximately 21 acres of the property identified as tax map 113-5-D. Property is located in Natural Bridge Magisterial District. On January 8th, 2024, the Board of Supervisors approved the special exception permit with the following conditions, and I can read. They were a total of 10 conditions. If necessary, I can read all 10 of them. But just like the last application, due to the application itself and the notice of public hearing, the application is limited to proposed changing condition number 9. The condition number 9 states implementation of the project by May 1st, 2025, and project completion by December 31st, 2025. As stated in the agenda item, the pending application is to amend the condition number 9, requesting an extension to the implementation and completion dates. Again, condition number 9 states implementation of the project by May 1st, 2025, and project completion by December 31st, 2025. Per the enclosed application and letter from Dan Sapler, Senior Project Developer with USS Hilltop Solar LLC, the request is for an 18-month extension for the implementation and completion dates. Wanted to have some conversation on this as far as the implementation dates. Per the customary dictionary meaning, implementation is defined as the process putting a decision into effect. Since the approval of the special exception permit, the applicant has worked with various agencies or VDOT to secure an entrance permit, Additionally, application has submitted the required erosion and sediment control and stormwater management plans and currently working on finalizing those plans. I serve as the zoning administrator, so I would not be comfortable making a determination based on the plain and ordinary definition, which of course the land development regulations utilize if it's not defined, would not be comfortable making a determination that the implementation of the project has not commenced with the work they've done to date. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Sapler, again, Senior Project Developer with USS Hilltop Solar LLC.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, my name is Dan Sapler, as Chris said. To back up a little bit, I was in front of you all probably about a year and a half ago, and we received an approval for a special exception permit back in 2024. We've been actively, working through all the development. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm gonna try to play with the volume here.
Sure. I'll do my best to
Yeah,
yell
Dan,
as loud as I
they're not
can
hearing you
into the microphone.
Some reason you're not coming through terribly well. All the volume's up on our end. If you could speak, essentially scream into your side of things, I think we'll be able to hear you.
Okay. By any chance?
Not much better.
Hmm.
It's unusual, but let me try this. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now, Chris?
Terribly well. All the volume's up. That did not work. Some lag time there.
How about now, Chris? Can you hear me?
Is a little bit better? A little bit better. If you could just speak up. I apologize for the technology.
Okay, no worries. No worries. You're gonna get a close up of my face. But yeah, so essentially to back up, we were approved with a special exception permit back in January of 2024. So we've been working pretty diligently since then to develop the project. And recently realized that our construction timelines don't essentially line up with condition number 9, so are seeking an extension. So back in January of 2024, we submitted to VDOT. That process took roughly 8 months, and we successfully received our approval from VDOT in August of 2024, and they actually approved our existing access road location, which was great news. We then kicked off the stormwater management process right around September, and that is still ongoing. We recently received the notice that we needed to purchase non-refundable nutrient credits. And that essentially just kind of triggered me to reach out to the board to seek an extension on this condition number 9. Additionally, since our approval, so we entered into a power purchase agreement with Dominion back in 2022. And as everyone's seen over the past 3 years, interest rates have risen. Everything has essentially gotten more expensive. So we were forced to terminate the power purchase agreement with Dominion and have since bid back into their RFP and are anticipating a new agreement to be signed in August of this year. So with all that being said, this would more or less bring us to an August timeframe when we can order construction equipment. Now, it's been taking, and this is kind of industry-wide, it's been taking roughly 9 months for equipment to arrive on site. So we essentially put in purchase orders for panels, for racking, for transformers, for inverters, and that all takes collectively about 9 months to arrive on site. So that will bring us to about May, call it June of 2026 for construction commencement. And then after that, it will take roughly 6 to 7 months to get it hooked up to the grid. That brings us to roughly February of 2027. And then, I added an extra 4 months just in case anything should go awry during that time period. So that's pretty much the request. Again, we've been working diligently to develop this and simply need the condition to align with our construction estimates. So thank you very much. I hope everyone was able to more or less hear me.
Yes, no, I was able to turn the volume up, so that
Okay.
worked well. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone physically present who would like to speak?
First on the sign-up list is Mr. Steve Hart.
Yeah, Steve Hart, Karst Creek. I was here when this one was first approved. And I understand delays in construction projects because I came before y'all and I'm doing a construction project. I may have to come back and ask for that as well. But this has always been one of my concerns for these projects is delays, the impact of changes in federal and state laws, and the potential that we end up with something that is not finished. And if we're going to grant an extension, let's make sure it's the right extension. Let's make sure the performance bonds are in place. Let's make sure it's actually going to go all the way through and get done and not leave one of our landowners, part of our citizens or part of the county with a mess. Again, I understand delays. I understand all of that. But I always wonder why. Right. And again, it's not my job, it's their job. We got to make sure we understand why all this has happened so that we don't end up with a mess in the county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second one to sign up is Mr. Bill Russell.
Gentlemen, how you doing? Not taking a position per se on this request. I just want to comment on the process again. And this seems to be what we go through every time. Goes through you all to the supervisors. But there haven't been any approvals from VDOT or the soil and land disturbance people. Those are all conditional. It would seem to me that it might make life a whole lot easier if the applicants had done that before it comes through here. It would also seem to me that it would make it more understandable when they were given an X amount of time, what that time really was good for, and that they weren't stuck trying to get approvals from other agencies outside of this process. You should be getting a complete package. I know that's not what's been done. Probably there are other reasons for it, but I would strongly recommend that somehow that process might be examined in terms of your workload, the supervisor's workload, and what you've got before you, so you don't see things repetitively before you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Miss Michelle Johnson.
Hello, gentlemen. Michelle Johnson, Karst Creek. I also am not here with any particular comments about this applicant. I'm here really to continue to oppose the consistent, persistent use of special exceptions once again for solar. The whole entire issue writ large needs to be handled differently, and I hope it will be very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, is that the end of
That is everyone that signed up, but we'll recognize anyone at this time.
Let's see if there's anybody on the computer or the phone.
Yes, ma'am. We have a T Bullock. T Bullock, you have the floor. You are muted. Now you're not.
Thank you, Mr. Slayden. Yes, my name's Teresa Bullock. Speaking for my wife, Tracy Hip. We are the adjoining landowners. Our view ship would be the solar farm. And I believe we spoke in front of the commission a year and a half ago when y'all denied the request at that point. We're still staunchly opposed to the idea of a solar farm being across the way and that a special exception was granted for an agriculturally zoned area that we purchased the land for that purpose, thinking that it would remain that way. Our concerns now are that they did not meet the timeline, and in what other ways might they not come through in the way that they promised. So right now it's point number 9 around implementation and completion. To one of the other public commenters, what if it isn't finished and it comes down to disassembly or whatever it is called, disposal, and they do not meet those requirements that we have put in place? What's to hold them to this? So yeah, thank you for hearing us out, and have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
That is everyone online. Thank you.
With no further comments, we will close the public hearing. Do we have a motion of any kind?
I'd like to have a discussion.
Let's have a discussion. Yeah.
I voted to recommend to deny the first time. And this was a concern of some citizens, but even more so now. I mean, if you can figure out what is going on in the solar industry, it's large array. And the generation that a small 3 megawatt solar array going to get, they're going to be at the bottom of the pile on it. You've got huge solar arrays going down in Spotsylvania. You got out in California, supposedly going to be the biggest in the United States. It's basically replacing the one at Kramer's Corner. And now you look at it, and what generation should we have? And Supervisor Lyons at the meeting with the group for Warm Run really drilled the number 3 money guy and basically said, you know, what's going to happen in 20 years? How much of this electricity is going to be produced? And they went, well, if it degrades by 2 to 5% under the current, whatever you want to call it, if you put in the panels that are now rather than the future generations, you'd be almost at 30% or 40% of the megawatts in 20 years. So what's going to happen if we're stuck with it? It'll take, somebody will say, well, it's still producing some. And so it's going to be sitting there. And I mean, I'm going to recommend denying it just like I did before, but I think this is a sign of the times. And I agree with the speakers. Why didn't they get this stuff? They was blaming somebody else. And why wouldn't you have your ducks in a row coming in? And if you want to have a further discussion, otherwise I'll make a motion.
I'd like to, in light of what you just last said, I mean, I'd like to, what is it, Mr. Sapler, some questions in terms of one of it specifically to go to that. I mean, I read your letter and I heard the comments, and I think some of the speakers even said that. I don't know that we really understand why this is being delayed. It seemed to be blamed on VDOT, and then the subsequent stormwater. But based on what I've seen is that the power purchase agreement was done in August of 2020. The one that's now terminated was done well before the application was put in. And it looks like to me that was the biggest factor, was the fact that, and you can explain that a little bit better than it was the PPA and the termination. And I assume it wasn't cost effective to keep continuing under the agreement that you had. But now we're going to be in a situation where you're not going to have a PPA, and we're going to give you another if it's approved. So if you can speak to that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, yeah. So I think more or less the PPA and the stormwater management are on a similar time frame, whether one comes before the other, maybe a month or two, perhaps. But you know, essentially, the 2-year timeline initially established when we went in front of the Board of Supervisors. Frankly, hindsight's 2020, but that really wasn't a realistic expectation, given the fact that we now have more experience in the area, more experience going through this PPA process, and the fact that the procurement for a lot of these items, the racking, the panels, the transformers, is taking 9 months. So I frankly didn't anticipate a 9-month procurement process when going through this with the Board of Supervisors. So that is also a very large laggard. Having these things fully developed and then at the whim of construction financing to then take to commence construction is something that, you know, I should have done a better job taking into consideration when I went in front of the Board of Supervisors a year and a half ago. So that all compounding is why we're here.
But right now, I mean, to me, I think the power purchase agreement is something you would need for financing. Is that correct?
That's exactly right, yes.
So you're not going to be able to even do any of that until August.
Right, but our plans are to essentially fully develop the project, go through stormwater management, hopefully get site plan approval from you all, and then have the power purchase agreement signed in August, and then get construction financing. That'll be the last, hopefully, and you know, as a developer, anything can go awry, but hope is that the power purchase agreement is the final box to check. We have an interconnection application and agreement in place with Dominion. We've already funded it. So we got the green light from that perspective as well.
I mean, I see this as just hanging over our head. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. Okay. I make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the application to modify condition number 9 associated with the previous approved special exception permit for a public utility in the agriculture transitional zoning district be denied.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'm going with the ayes.
Going with the ayes. So we have the original motion carries with Kramer.
Actually, I mean, I don't think we have enough discussion.
You
Is
want
it
more
possible?
discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what the implication is of the denial in terms of,
Okay, right now we have a motion on the floor, so if you want to continue discussion, you'd have to vote against the motion, and that would open the
Okay,
floor to
then
more
I vote-
discussion.
I vote no.
Another motion could be made again by those who are in the prevailing side.
So the motion does not carry because he voted no. Okay. Can we reopen? Can we reopen
Yeah,
discussion now that?
No, yeah, that motion failed, but discussion's still open. You haven't closed the discussion.
Okay.
Then do we have
I
another
just,
motion?
this is something some questions I have for staff. In terms of, can we give, I mean, if we deny this right now, I mean, this is still
You would be recommending denial.
recommended the denial of the change.
That's correct.
So this still stays in place.
The
That's correct.
original special exception permit. But
And so what is the implications to the county? Or what ramifications does the company have?
Can I say that, Chris? What would happen is, I don't think real question comes on implementation. Chris hasn't been asked to make a ruling as to whether implementation took place, but he stated that he could not say implementation hasn't happened given the steps that they've taken. And we're not talking about construction completion or even construction implementation, we're talking project implementation. So assuming that's the case, and if Chris is asked to make that formal decision, he would do so at a later point. Assuming that's the case, what we're really talking about is the extension of time for completion from the end of this year to, I think, was it June 2027?
That's correct.
Yeah, so that's the real issue that's before the board right now is to, if the commission right now, if the commission recommends against it and the board accepts and votes against it, the board of supervisors accepts, votes against it, then they would have to complete it by December, the end of December of this year, or come back and seek another extension or see whatever process they could follow that way. But that's the issue before us now.
I did have some questions. Again, this is staff. I mean, I look back at some of the, one of the arguments for putting this there is that it protected the family farm of Mr. Bradford. That's at the time, and now it's a different owner. So that rationale kind of goes away, I think, in terms of.
So we failed to mention, I apologize, but we have a written comment from the current owners that I forwarded today. It's my understanding that it is the current owners, the husband's great grandfather's farm that has now purchased the property. And so their desire, as written in there, is to have the extension granted. So does that address your question?
I think so, but they don't live there. Mr.
No.
Bradford still live there?
Yes, it's my understanding Mr. Bradford has a lifetime estate to the house and yard area. And then that's.
He's still on the property.
He is still on the property.
Yeah.
Crawford,
Yeah.
I had a question for Mr. I'm glad that was brought up, Mr. Sapler. With this delay, I know that the current owners purchased the property knowing that this lease was going to either in effect currently or would be. And are you all currently making lease payments to them?
We are currently under an option to lease, but we do have an option renewal steady payment essentially being made yearly to the property owner.
Okay.
Is U.S. Solar, is their intent to actually do the construction or manage the construction?
At this time, yes. Yeah, we do develop, own, and maintain arrays. So that's our intent.
That seems to be unusual in this, from what we've heard, that they would own and develop it.
That's preferred.
It is preferred in my mind too. I can see why in this environment of the last few years that he's had delays for numerous reasons, and solar is fairly new. So some of these young businessmen might make a mistake in forecasting timelines. So I can understand where they're coming from.
Yeah. One other thing, I mean, if we ever get to the point where we actually vote on these conditions and stuff, I because of the wording of the implementation thing, I'm kind of concerned that just replacing construction with implementation can create a similar problem with how it started and how you define that. I mean, I think I don't know if we can use substantive construction, where we limit it, it doesn't include
Well, the
ceremony
completion date would be to kind of take care of that. The wording, they got to get done by.
We don't want them to start it if they're not going to complete it. So both dates are important to some degree. And if they get started, and that's what some of the people I think mentioned, is if we get started and finish. Now, again, is the decommissioning coverage, the language we have in there as far as it's not the same as language that we've been using recently in terms of protection that that we're going to have something available to us to take care of it taking it down if we don't. I mean, that falls onto the county and it's going to cost money. So therefore, I forget what the language actually is.
Decommissioning agreement.
well, it says, providing financial assurance. So that was something that would have to be done in advance. Again, Chris and I have had the discussion about start and stop date. They're both important.
Okay.
And they're both important for different reasons. If they've got it 3/4 of the way done and they
You're gonna
want an
say
extension
go.
of the end date, yeah, you got it. But if we're gonna be back here before the new start date,
I don't think
Well,
that
I
would go
think
well.
the dates
Yeah.
requested are reasonable. I mean, the original ones probably were not, an 8-month time period from start to finish. Probably in hindsight was not reasonable, but I think what's being requested now is, and I don't have any concern that the PPA won't be executed and all the other permits that are needed won't fall in place. So I don't have any concern.
but we did have, in the last one we had 21 conditions. This one has 10.
That's out of the scope of what we're doing tonight.
I realize that, but if we deny it and they can't meet the start, then maybe they can submit it and then we get another bite at that apple.
We'll go to the Board of Supervisors next. If they disapprove it, then it would come back to us if they so chose.
I'm just saying, that's part of what I was asking about. What's the implication of one vote or the other? It's not just, we're not just approving or disapproving the solar field. That solar field has been approved. That's the reason for my a waffle there.
Understandable. All right. Any other discussion? Any other motions?
I'll make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors the application to modify condition number 9 associated with the previously approved special exception permit for a public utility in the agricultural and general use A2 and agricultural transitional AT zoning districts be approved with the following amended condition. Number 9, construction of the project shall commence by May 1, 2026 and completion by June 30th, 2027.
We have a motion. Is there a second? I can make a second in this small.
Yeah, you have the right to make a second.
I second the motion. We have a motion and a second. Do we have all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 3-2.
That's for opposition too. Just
Oh, I'm sorry. And those opposed? 2 nays, Sandridge and Kramer. And the ayes were Beebe, Whitmore, and Sabrisi. And the motion carries. Thank you all. The next item on the agenda is Bark Electric Cooperative Public Hearing Application to amend a condition with a previously approved special exception permit. This time we'll have presentations.
That's correct. All right. BARC Electric Cooperative, mailing address of PO Box 246, Millboro, Virginia 24456, has made an application to amend conditions associated with the previously approved special exception permit for a public utility. At that time, it included an office complex, equipment store, equipment yard, and solar facility in the agricultural and general use districts. Property is further identified, and let me zoom out a second. Property is further identified as 1972 Big Spring Drive, Lexington, Virginia 24450, and further identified as tax map number 47-A-50, consisting of 15.24 acres per tax records. Per section 603.03-9 of the regulations, public utilities are used by special exception in the A2 zoning district. So I did want to attempt a brief review of the history. On May 26, 2025, the Board of Supervisors approved a special exception permit for a public utility in the A2 zoning district for an 8-acre parcel. The special exception was for an office complex, Bark offices, which are currently housed in the former Highland Bell School, equipment yard that was to the rear of the existing Bark offices, and a solar facility, which is now the existing approximately 1.6, 1.8 acre solar facility in front of the Bark offices. On November 2nd, 2015, Bark purchased an additional 7.2 acres to the west of the existing 8-acre parcel. A boundary line adjustment vacated the common property line to create the 15.42 acre parcel. So briefly, the very schematically, I'll say the original 8 acres was in this area. Everything to the east of my new line here. And so when Bark purchased the property, they did so by vacating this line and essentially reestablishing the line along the VDOT right of way there. On March 28th, 2016, the Board of Supervisors approved an amended special exception permit to the May 26, 2015 special exception permit. The amended plan provided for expansion of the solar facility to encompass a portion at the time the newly acquired 7.25 acres. Additionally, the 2016 plan included a community field with the expansion of this county collection center in this area and drainage pad in the area and limited parking. At the time, the plan for a community field did not materialize. So that's essentially what the pending application is to amend the March 28, 2016 special exception permit. So since that time, on July 24th, 2017, the Board of Supervisors approved a 2-year special exception permit to utilize a portion of the area on the west side of the property, which was previously approved for a solar field facility as a temporary laydown yard for storage of material needed for fiber projects. That was extended on March 25th, 2019. The Board of Supervisors approved a 2-year extension of the temporary special exception permit to continue to utilize the area for a temporary laydown yard of storage materials needed for fiber projects. And there's a section of code 802.03-11 of the regulations that state renewal of a special exception permit does not require a public hearing unless the original conditions in the permit are changed. However, it goes on to say, however, the renewal will be shown on the agenda of the Board of Supervisors agenda. So that's the ordinance. That's what the ordinance states. We also do it's not a notice of public hearing, obviously, but a notice to all adjoiners, such as a notice, the same manner that we would do a notice of public hearing. On March 25th, again, 2019, the Board of Supervisors approved a 2-year special exception permit with the same conditions. On May 10th, 2021, the Board of Supervisors approved a 2-year special exception permit. However, a condition associated with the March 25th, 2019 permit was required to be modified. Therefore, section 802.03-11, as previously referenced, was not utilized. The condition that was required to be modified was associated with the expiration date of the temporary entrance permit off of Big Spring Road. At that time, the condition stated the at that time, the condition revised to state that the special exception permit was a contingent upon final VDOT and erosion sediment control stormwater management. On April 24th, 2023, the Board approved a 2-year extension of the special exception, again per 802.03-11 of the regulations. The expiration date for the current temporary special exception permit is April 24th, 2025. Per the written request associated with the April 24th, 23 extension, Bark stated that they were going to develop a long-term plan for this portion of the property prior to the expiration date of the 2-year extension. A portion of the property that is proposed for the equipment laydown yard and warehouses is located in the 100-year flood hazard area, commonly referred to as the 100-year floodplain. Prior to the construction of the solar facility, Bark obtained a letter of map amendment Loma from FEMA that removed portions of the parcel out of the 100-year floodplain, which at the time was 8 acres. After speaking with the surveyor that prepared the boundary line adjustment plat and worked on the Loma, it was confirmed or clarified that the Loma only pertained to the portion of the property that Bark owned at the time, the 8 acres. The Loma did not modify the mapping associated with the 7.24 acre portion of property that, again, was not owned by Bark at that time. The pending special exception permit is to amend conditions associated with the March 28th, 2016 permit, requesting that the area that was approved as a portion of the solar facility be utilized for equipment, laydown yard, and warehouses. The proposed long-term equipment, laydown yard, and warehouses is in the area that has been utilized under the temporary special exception permit and extensions thereof. So in your package, I included the ordinance from May of 16 with the conditions associated with that time. And then just as of this afternoon, we were able to draft some amended conditions with subtract change version that could be utilized if the Planning Commission is to recommend approval. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Bill Buchanan to review the request. And while you start, I'm gonna pull up the plan itself.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. And I want everybody to know I've got Chris Bochelinski here with me as well. He's our chief operating officer and has a lot more knowledge of some of this stuff than I do. So I may have to defer to him if you have any questions. But basically, I think the last time I was in here was as Chris said a couple of years ago, to extend the special use permit or special exemption permit and of the laydown yard. And we basically want to not have to keep kicking the can down the road every 2 years. So we're hoping to get this done permanently and make this a permanent laydown yard for us, along with a warehouse in time. It wouldn't be right away, but to be able to put a warehouse in there as well to keep some equipment under roof. Right now, a lot of our stuff sits outside. So that would be the goal of doing this laydown yard, keeping it as it is, expanding it a little bit, cleaning it up and putting a warehouse in it. So, but I'm sure a lot of questions around it. So I'll just let you guys ask what the questions are.
And if I may, I just pulled the plan up here. So again, in 2016, the Board of Supervisors approved a plan for expansion of the proposed solar facility to encompass this area. We reiterated the history of that since that time. Now, as far as what you're seeing here now, everything that is in gray or in green in this case is shaded that way, I should say, is existing. And so the proposal is to expand the current gravel area, proposed 100 by 200 warehouse and a 200 by 100 essentially open on one side equipment storage area. And so also you'll notice other major revisions, if you will. The current temporary construction entrance, as I understand it, is located here. So that is proposed to be removed, and the ingress and egress to the site, to the laydown yard, will be proposed to be off of Fredericksburg Road. Of course, that currently serves the collection center there, and so that would have to be expanded. Serves the collection center as a one-way traffic coming in, so that would have to be expanded to allow for ingress and egress in this case. Other things to note, the proposed road that goes not only to the laydown yard, also goes up to this area behind the house, behind the existing Bark facility. The office is what is currently being used somewhat as a laydown yard or equipment storage yard as well. The other proposed improvements or proposed modifications plan is this is a very limited row of existing emerald green arborvitaes. Those are very short trees and always will be a short tree. There was some discussion at that time of why they were short trees is because the solar facility is facing this way, and there was concerns of shadowing effect as far as to plant large trees in this area, shadowing the proposed solar field at that time. This row is proposed to be skip laurels, skip cherry laurels, and there's some other discussion on landscaping here and then landscaping here, something we've chatted with Mr. Buchanan and Chris and sorry, I just had something pop up. And also members of the planning commission.
Okay.
I'd recommend opening the hearing and then.
Yeah, we'll do the public hearing first. Okay. At this time, we are going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone physically present who would like to speak?
Yes, there is. Mr. Steve Hart.
Steve Hart, Cars Creek. We're here for about the 5th time, same topic. Where's my timer? I kind of feel like the first thing I ought to hear from the county leadership is, well, Mr. Hart, you were right and we were wrong. Because 9 years ago, I stood here and I told you this was going to happen. Not because I am particularly bright, but because anyone with a basic understanding of project planning and execution could have foreseen this. 9 years ago, we had an opportunity to discuss this when the only thing on the ground was paper. We didn't do it. But everything that's happened in the past 9 years really is actually irrelevant to our decision, because Mr. Buchanan's predecessor, y'all's predecessors, the preceding board said, oh, it's just temporary. Temporary means it goes away. Temporary doesn't mean it turns into something bigger and more permanent. The question is actually, are we going to turn a section of agricultural land in an agricultural zone into an industrial zone facility? I can see turning a school into an office building, no real change. I can see putting the solar panels in front of it. It is a power company. But putting up large buildings, expanding the paved area, using a permanent laydown yard, changing the entrance, we are turning this into an industrial zone. And if we're going to do this, let's just man up and rezone it industrial. And let's be honest about what we're doing. Now, I'm really upset about it because 9 years ago, the citizens of the county were actually denied the opportunity for the proper conversation. And I'm sorry, I feel sorry for Mr. Buchanan, current leadership of BARC. They inherited this mess. They didn't cause it. I feel sorry for y'all because of your predecessors. Y'all inherited this mess. We didn't cause it. But now I feel like the neighbors are going to be the ones that are going to pay for it. We should have had this decision 9 years ago. And the fact that it's been this way, and I'm repeating myself, should not impact that. Is this an appropriate thing that we need the Cars Creek Industrial Zone to be? That's the question. And I would submit it's not. The correct answer, again, it should be the same today as it was 9 years ago. You know something? That's a great idea. We really appreciate what BARC's doing, but what you're proposing is industrial activity. It is clearly industrial activity. You need to buy a piece of land in an industrial zone or a piece of land adjacent to an industrial zone so that we can rezone that and we can do industrial activity in industrial zones. That's what zoning and planning means. It doesn't mean we're just going to turn ag land into industrial zones whenever we feel like it. And I'm sorry for coming in close. I've been busy. I'm sorry for not having my notes prepared. I tried like 6 times. I just don't know how to make sense of this.
Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Bill Russell.
Russell, Cars Creek. Speaking not for myself, speaking for the Rockbridge Taxpayers Alliance, we met last week with our full board and about 15 of our members. This was part of the subject, the discussion. Many of our membership is in Cars Creek. I had taken a look at the history of the amendments, of the extensions of special exceptions. They seem a lot less special when you keep doing them over and over again. They are clearly special to the intended use that's being presented here, which, by the way, I don't believe any of our members or the public has seen that. Is there anybody that wants to tell me differently?
Seeing what?
Seen the plan,
The plan that
No.
was presented here.
That was included in your package.
right? As the public, he asked if the
Yes.
public has seen it.
If it inquired with the planning department or went online, it's available online and has been since.
Was it available online for the public?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Let's see it. Perhaps I missed it while I was looking. Anyway, we oppose this. We think it should be sent out to the residents of Carrs Creek in particular. And we also wanted to express a concern here about the lack of transparency that appears to be occurring at BARC with regard to available documents from BARC that members should be allowed to see also. We would ask that you vote this down and ask for reconsideration after a public hearing of the residents of Carrs Creek. Thank you.
Thank
Can I
you.
ask you why you oppose it?
Why I oppose it?
Yes.
One, I think Steve's correct. It is projecting an industrial use in a district that is entirely not zone. There's no industrial zoning in Carrs Creek. And that's part of your planning document and your comprehensive plan was to make Carrs Creek essentially more of a nature agricultural zoned and related area. That's part of the problem the people who are residents of Carrs Creek have. In addition to which, some of the people who are neighbors see that the change of conditions here, the temporary laydown yard is becoming, on its fifth iteration, now a permanent laydown yard and an industrial building.
Thank you, Bill.
Miss Michelle Johnson.
Michelle Johnson, I still live in Carrs Creek. I am opposed to this as well. I don't have my thoughts well organized. I will tell you, I'm hot about it. I'm really angry about it. One of the reasons is, and I'm sorry to get this emotional about this, but we have a small farm and we're trying to do something with that. And Steve gave the land for us to try and have a market. And we had to come in and get a special exception to have a market so that people in an agricultural district would actually have someplace to sell their agricultural products, which isn't a giant leap of logic. That makes a lot of sense. And in fact, we're in the village services area on the comprehensive plan on the maps. We got the special exception. We helped Steve go. I didn't do much work. I know Steve's done a lot more because when I drive by in the afternoon, he's out there working. When I come back at evening after I've been out to dinner, he's there working. He's trying to build something, which will be right across the street from this new industrial project and the laydown yard, the permanent laydown yard. And that's going to be supposedly the brewery and the market that we're all going to sell our products in. And I'm sorry to be this emotional, but I'm angry because I work a full-time job and then I'm out working on my farm to try and build something. And the only place I have to sell my products is Steve's general store that he's building. And I'm tired of this. I'm trying to do something on my land and that's supposed to be the be all and end all here. Why God, people can do what they want on their own land. Well, we're trying to do it and Steve's trying to do it. And we thought we were in an agricultural district. That's what all the paperwork says. And I'm really hot. Please vote no.
Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Buddy Powers.
Evening, Buddy Powers, Carrs Creek. I apologize for my attire. I was coming straight from lacrosse practice at the high school. So I'll be brief. It is a long history, so in my sense, it's a lot to digest. I would say we were here when the whole transfer of the property happened from the county to BARC. I agree. These guys we did get to meet. They do seem like great guys. I think they want to be much better neighbors than their predecessors have been. That's all great. I think that said, we need to give them time to act on that. My experience being a neighbor has been a series of violating a site plan, extending things much longer than they were originally ever conceived of to be. I remember discussing concerns of there being a growing laydown yard there. I mean, remember, we're talking about amending an expanded solar array area and a community playing field to now make into warehouses and laydown yard. Unfortunately, when Bark acquired the property, there was little to nothing done. You guys know about the emerald green arborvitae to screen the property. I said to these guys, you know, if your predecessors had planted a bunch of Leland cypresses and emerald green arborvitaes, I think half of your woes would be gone because they'd be 10 years old now, and you'd have a proper screen, and you could at least consider, well, what if we did expand our industrial use of this property? But unfortunately, if you visit the site, which I'm sure a lot of you have been out to Cars Creek, they have one of the most visible properties because it's in the bottom of a valley at the intersection of 60 and Fredericksburg Road. And if you look back, like on the GIS, their original site plan shows the proposed solar array and the property line between the original Highland Bell property and the Williamson 8 acres-ish that they bought. There was a forested area there that they were supposed to maintain that blocked all of the views, my views, Janet Larrabee's, you know, everybody east up the valley from the intersection of 60 and, you know, the road there beyond. They unfortunately tore that down to expand the solar array onto that property. And that's where all of this now industrial use is going to be. I'm running out of time, but the last thing I'll mention is just my request is either a denial or a postponement of a decision. Because in 2015, we made an easement with Bark. The previous owners of Big Spring made an easement with Bark that are you all aware of the easement we have with the restricting covenants? There's restricting covenants in that easement. Chris recently, I think maybe a couple weeks ago, brought to my attention that the solar array, I was unaware that the solar array extended off the property. That's in a direct violation of our easement, which has a non-expansion clause in it. I'm out of time, but I can send you the easement. I sent it to Chris and these guys. They all have it. It's publicly recorded. The problem for me is I'm facing a legal issue here. I've retained counsel. I've talked to an easement expert attorney, and you know, what you're considering approving will, by special exception, this is not a by right use, will put me in a direct lawsuit situation with breach of contract between a, you know, just another citizen and Barb. So I would say on that alone, pump the brakes so that I can try to figure something out with them. Because I'm open to talking. We had a great first meeting. That was only a week ago. The site plans changed, looked better, but there's a lot of discussion that I think needs to be had. So I know I'm over time, but I feel like totally under the gun on all this. And that's why my recommendation is denial or postponement of a decision.
Thank you, buddy.
That is all that's physically signed up, but we'll recognize anyone else at this time.
Computer on phone.
Now we got somebody here.
Whoop, excuse me.
Cynthia Cater, South River District. I don't have a dog in this fight, except to say, as I'm sitting here listening, this is a temporary laydown yard, but these guys are just talking about putting up warehouses. How does that jive? Either it's temporary or it's not. I see the stuff being temporary. He's talking about putting warehouses, and that doesn't seem to fit in this situation. So I'm just asking you to deny this motion.
Thank you.
And if I may, I'd like to comment on some of the Zoom. There's no one on Zoom. I'm sorry, I didn't allow you to.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. Chris, did you say you wanted?
No, I apologize. We're still in the public hearing. I jumped the gun third time tonight.
Okay, at this point, we're going to close the public hearing. What?
I'd like to make a motion.
Close the hearing first. Oh, no, maybe you don't want to close the hearing.
No, you could
Oh, no.
close or continue the
We
public
have
hearing, but then we have discussion.
Yeah, we're
and
gonna
then
have
we can ready for a motion.
But
But if you close the hearing, you can't.
yeah, correct. So if he
Can't
wants to
continue
make
it.
a motion to continue, it
Right.
has to be done before the hearing gets closed.
Yeah, so can I do that?
If you do it before they close the hearing, yeah, or other words,
Yeah.
it'd have to be set over. Yeah, that would be the appropriate time to make that motion now.
Okay.
That does not have to be in a form of motion. It could be,
Or it could, yeah, they could.
you could just, if that's the desire of the planning commission, we would just continue the public hearing, not close it.
I'm not positive on what I'm supposed to do. Continue the public hearing.
If it's a consensus of the planning commission to continue the
I think
public
there's some
hearing,
discussion that would like to be had. So what's the best way to facilitate that?
Well, if you're going to have discussion, then you do need to close the public hearing for the purpose of having your discussion. Now, you can amongst yourself discuss and leave the option for citizens to come up and talk if you want to recognize them while the hearing's still open. So that's your call on it.
I'm saying, if we want to have a discussion now,
You'd still be in public hearing. It's just like when you asked a question to the individual during the public hearing. It's just, when you ask a question, it's the same
That
thing.
would allow
Public
some
hearing, so-
input from.
also they could continue the public hearing to a date and time.
Yes,
and-
yeah, that's, no, and
And
that's, so
still
if
have
your,
discussion.
yeah, so if your discussion is going to be whether you want to continue the public hearing, you would do that right now too. And then you would, then there would need to be actually a motion because continuing is a motion.
Yes.
And then, so then somebody, while the hearing's still open, we need to make a motion. And then if that carries, then the hearing is not closed. It's continued to a date that you set. And then that would mean that we wouldn't have to the public hearing would still be open the time that you meet next time when you set the date for it. And people then could actually make comments if that's how you want to structure it. And then you could close the hearing at that time and then make any decision you want to.
but can we still have discussions with Mark? Even if we keep it open?
Well, if you're in the public hearing, our rules are generally, 3 minutes per comment. Generally, we don't ask questions or public hearing, but you as a commission can do that if you want to.
But is it correct they could continue the public hearing and then have discussion after they made? a
Oh,
motion
yeah,
to-
yeah. Once you can do the public hearing, then you can close. You can still discuss. You just you wouldn't be making any motions on this because you can't make any motions or any decision while the public hearing is still open. So, but the general practice would be you continue the public hearing and move on to your next item of business. And then when you close the public hearing at your next meeting or whenever you decide, and then you'd have your discussions on it. But as a commission, you can still, it's not on the agenda, but you could talk about, talk if you'd like to.
I think we need to discuss this. We need an open discussion.
Yeah, I mean, it's two things I want. I want the public to be able to continue to have a say prior on, but also I want more information that the public can comment on. So how do I do that?
Well, if you continue the public hearing now, then that means that what you would do is it would be set for another time in the future. You can achieve during that, between now and that next meeting, you can, as commission members, can gather whatever information that you need to gather. And, but the board discussions or any motions to approve or deny the special exception need to happen after the close of the public hearing. So you wouldn't be able to make any motions as long as the public hearing is still
Open
open.
another public hearing next time.
If you'd open another public hearing, we'd have to notice it and move forward with the notice requirements.
We don't have enough.
So, but what you could do is the options you have now is continue the public hearing. And then you'd have a future date where you would continue discussion and invite members of the public would still be allowed to make comments. And at that point, you would close the hearing when you decide you're ready. Number two, you close the hearing now, and then you can just set this forward to another date. At that point, the public hearing would be closed, but then you still could have time to think about it, and then you could come together as a commission and have discussions, decide to make the motion at that time, or you can make motions now and vote either yes or no. After the close of the public hearing, make motions.
Can I clarify that? I personally am not ready for motions. I would like to continue the public hearing so that we discuss it next time and the public can be involved one more time. However, that kind of stifles discussion now.
The planning commission can continue the public hearing, and in order to continue the public hearing, we are required to do public notice in the newspaper, certified mail of the continued public hearing. That's no problem at all, but it's my understanding that you could continue the public hearing and then have discussion with the planning commission.
Amongst yourself, you can have a discussion, but no motions can take place.
Exactly.
No
No,
actions
yeah,
take
absolutely.
place.
Yes.
But
That's correct.
No
Yes.
motions. To that.
But when you move to continue the public hearing, that means for purposes of today, there is no more public hearing going on. It will only recommence at the time you continue it. So there wouldn't be the opportunity for people to speak. So just understand the continuance of the public hearing or closing the public hearing as of the time you make that would mean that the public hearing is no more active for purpose of this meeting. And any discussion you have afterwards, you could ask Chris questions, you could do other things you would need to, but you couldn't make any motions.
And the applicant as well. You could ask
And
if you
yeah,
close.
I mean, because
practice.
I'm a little disappointed that, I mean, essentially, we had Mr. Buchanan up here and Chris gave the presentation and I mean.
Well, our normal procedure would be, we have that happen first, then we have the public hearing, and then when the public hearing is closed, then normally the commission would then be asking Chris or the applicant questions. That's normally what's done prior to making, and then the commission would then have discussion amongst themselves, and then if decided to be, then a motion would be made to act. That's the normal procedure, how we normally follow. The issue now is to whether or not you want to continue it. And so if you want to continue it, the procedure would be for somebody to make a motion to continue it, and then second, and you vote on it. At that point, Chris would handle, I guess, the notifications required afterwards for the data continuation.
And you would have the opportunity to have questions answered to staff or the applicant.
And a clarification, if I close the meeting, then the public does not get to comment again at the next meeting.
That's correct. Yeah, that means unless you set another public hearing and go through the process of doing so.
Well, I think
Historically, yeah, well, I agree. Historically, they would have the opportunity to speak during citizen comments, but I wholeheartedly
yes,
agree with the notice of public hearing. I'm sorry, with the continuation of.
Before either one of those is done, I just had a couple of questions too. And one was for you. I didn't understand the whole easement thing. Is it okay to ask that the whole easement issue you were trying to describe? I don't know if you all got.
My view on those types of discussion, it might be best to go ahead and make a decision. You actually have a motion on the floor to continue the public, and so the process would be you would deal with that motion that's on the floor first. And once you've dealt with it, and the questions you're raising now, I think would be appropriate to raise after that's decided, either if you vote yes to continue, then you could raise at that point, or if you vote no against it, then you'd close the public hearing, and then you could raise those questions. That'd be the more appropriate way to do it.
Motion to continue.
And that is to continue to the April 9th, 2025 regular scheduled planning commission at 7 p.m.
Is that a motion, Dan?
Yes.
That's a motion to continue. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. We will continue the public hearing at the next planning commission date.
That's correct. And now, if appropriate, I'd like to address some comments that were made. As far as the public hearing for Cars Creek, that's exactly what we're doing this month and next month. This is a public hearing. It's been advertised in the newspaper, certified mail to all adjoiners, and 10 days prior to to today's date, the property was posted both on Big Spring Road and Fredericksburg Road with zoning action pending signs. That is all, in my opinion, an invitation to this public hearing. With that being said, as far as the industrial zoning district, we've reviewed this in the past. Every zoning district, regardless if it's industrial or agricultural, has permitted uses and uses by special exception. The permitted uses are the right of the landowner to do that. It's a regulatory process. The special exceptions have been deemed to be special exceptions by the Board of Supervisors because it has a potential higher and more impactful to the surrounding community. So we have things as far as special exceptions, other special exceptions examples, junk yards, junk storage, salvage yards, commercial sawmills, shooting ranges, wood yards is a new one we did by special exception, mining operations, and tonight we have a public utility in front of us. And so there are both permitted uses that are very commercial in nature by right uses, and then again they're more and higher and intensive uses by special exception because they have a potential higher impact on the neighborhood. So this is the public hearing, and that's the explanation I have for the permitted uses and uses by special exceptions. As far as the farmers market across the road, that is not a special exception. It did not require a public hearing. Y'all never saw that. It's sort of, a good example was the Fancy Hill that I reported to today. That's not directly related to zoning. Those applications go directly to the Board of Supervisors. And the first year you do get a 1-year permit, but the second year you can get a 5-year permit, I believe it is. And so that is a very different process than what we're going through this evening. Now, as far as the, Mr. Powers' comment on the, private easement and the language of private easement, I'll probably turn the floor over to Mr. Dryden to address the commission on that.
And just to make one point about the farmer's market, I think that was also tied in with the brewery and the store. So I think there was a special exception for those parts of it. if I
Well,
remember
the
correctly.
farmer's market that's in existence is not
Oh, yeah,
associated
no,
with the
you're
special
correct, correct,
exception.
You're correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. So, the easement issue is, there is an easement. An easement is a private agreement between two parties that runs with land. The question as to whether or not there's been a violation of the easement or not, that's the county. We don't opine on that. We've seen there is an easement in place, and that's a matter that private citizens have to deal with and resolve. This is a legislative function of the planning commission. So as a legislative function, you could ask questions about that and consider it, but it's not, it does not affect our approval or disapproval of a special exception permit. It's just, but as a legislative function, you do have a broad powers to consider all factors that are there, and those which are relevant to the property can be considered for approval or denial.
And one more point of clarity, as far as my comment to Mr. Powers, if I recall correctly, the comment was that the solar array, I'm uncertain if the current solar array extends to that property line. We looked at this afternoon, Bark and I looked at this afternoon. If it is, it's a very, very small portion of that. It would have to be surveyed to determine if it is over onto what was the Williamson property at the time, or formerly as the Williamson property. I think my comment to Mr. Powers was the 2016 expansion of the solar field definitely approved the expansion into the Williams. There's no question about that. But as far as where I'm uncertain if they're in potential violation of the easement language now with what they have now pertaining to the solar array.
And then that's would be an example for an easement where I'm not aware if that issue was brought up before the board at the commission at the time that was brought forward, but it's not, it is a separate issue from whether or not we grant a special exception. However, as a legislative body, you can
Discuss
ask questions, discuss about it. Yeah.
next time, next meeting.
The appropriate is. Yeah.
We can't do that kind of stuff now.
You can talk about things now. It's just to keep in mind is, the discussions you have now are fine. But you cannot make any actions, and you would have time. I would assume you would have time after the next time to
Yeah,
discuss.
I'm just trying to learn
that's
some more.
perfectly
I
fine.
felt like we had a very
Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine.
incomplete presentation in terms of what's going to be done here. And I'd like to.
Well,
pursue
and
that stuff.
as commission members, you also can do, fact finding on your own between meetings too. So that's all would be normally expected. But yeah, no, you have the right. As a commission, you can discuss anything you think is appropriate.
And as far as discussion, it would be towards staff or the applicant at this time, correct?
Towards staff and the applicant.
Okay. But I'd like to ask some questions.
Oh,
Sure, is that okay?
I think it's a great idea.
Mr. Buchanan, or I'm trying to find, and maybe it's on there. I'm looking at some of the language that you've got. This thing's being this 150 by 100 warehouse is being described as a place where you put trucks as well. That's not a warehouse, that's a garage, which means it's going to be higher than a warehouse. There's like no effort put into what kind of building, what it's going to look like from the outside. I know the TCO, and I'm not that familiar with the TCO, would have some input there, but
Yeah,
I
they-
would like to have that as well, because in terms of, is it going to look like a barn? Then maybe people would be more acceptable with that. None of that is in this plan. And
Correct. It would have to go in front of, it's our understanding, it would have to go in front of the TCO to be approved. And we would, prior, I believe there's the colors, the heights, all of that stuff has to be approved by those rules.
But I would also like to take that into account for my.
Absolutely. And we
This is
would,
not here.
before we would even propose putting a building up, other than just having the ability to do it,
That'd be too late for us, though. We have to decide the next meeting. So we don't have that information. And, then I just think some of the community's complaints about this being industrial, if you can make it not look industrial, maybe it would be more tolerable.
The building would be closer to making it look not industrial with a laydown
I
yard.
don't have any of that, that's your word now. It's not, I don't know how to make a condition out of that to make sure that happens. I mean, that's what I guess one of my biggest concerns is that, I mean, I understand, yeah, we've been handed this, not you personally, but the company has been saying temporary, temporary, temporary. And now it's like, well, Mr. Hart said, it's now, we're now, I
Understood.
would have liked to have had that resolved long before I got here, which has
Understood.
only been about 6 months or so. But the other thing is that I do believe there's some benefit to the county of you continuing that laydown. You're still doing work in the southern part of the county as far as your
We do work all over the county. We're in 5 counties. So
yeah, I know, but I'm
it's-
sorry, you've got your electric and you've got your installation of the broadband, which that's going on still. And if it's not, I want to know that
no,
because,
what's still going on? There's a current VATI grant and there's a current USDA grant right now.
and where's that work being done?
The USDA grant is the big hill to Effinger, which we're calling Collierstown. And then the VATI is Buffalo Creek and Spring Valley and the Conrock area. So
That laydown yard serves those things
yeah,
pretty good.
100%. It serves all that and it serves all of our
There
electric.
could be some impact on the people that eventually get there if you're forced to move this stuff somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for us, and again, you know, Chris and I, the lay down yard was there when we got here. I'm not pointing fingers, but, and I really don't know the history well enough. And I honestly don't care about it. I'm trying to figure out how to get through it. The last time I was here, I said I wanted to get something done permanently instead of just kicking the can down the road another 2 years every time, because that's causing a problem too. We can't do anything there. I mean, other than just, we got stuff laying on the ground there. That's
Oh, I'm
I'm
with you. That's the same goal that I have, but it's either you clear everything out and you leave it just a field because your permit expires, or we come up with something that is
and we have a lay down yard in Bath County too, and it is, you know, it's big enough to handle all of our stuff. What it does is it just slows down the response time when it comes to outages. I mean, if we have to drive across the mountain to get supplies to come back over and change out poles, it's going to take a lot longer than it does today. So yeah,
I understand, but I understand why that's there, and I also understand why the extensions kept being made. And it sounds like to me that, again, like some of the stuff that we've had, reality didn't match the plan.
But the one thing I would like to add, just because of in meeting with Buddy and getting the opportunity to kind of get up on the ridge and look, I can totally understand the frustration. When you get up there and you look down into the you know, the bowl per se, the bottom of the bowl, it's a lot of that stuff is a lot more visible from his point of view than it is from our point of view looking the other direction. So, I mean, I totally agree that it needs to be done in a well thought out manner. And we asked for some input. We got a lot of great input, and I think there's ways to work around it, but something has to happen. We either have to continue to have a lay down yard for a temporary time until all this stuff's figured out, which is what I was trying to avoid, or we need to make it permanent, or we need to not have it at all. Those are kind of the three choices I see. And in doing the, you know, giving us time to figure out how that's going to look, but it would probably be the best. But I certainly have no desire to not be a good neighbor out there. If we need
that's not
plant trees.
As I said, I don't feel like I have enough information. The concerns that we've heard about, you know, this being industrial, if it doesn't look industrial, would that be more palatable? And I don't have enough information that this isn't going to be an aluminum building put up there that's an eyesore, you know, when you drive by. I mean, there's already things around there that I would consider eyesore as well. And but I'm saying you've got an opportunity here in giving us you know, some assurances, things that we can put conditions on that from my vote standpoint, maybe I'd be more willing. Right now, it sounds like to me, I'm worried
Absolutely. No,
that the building's going to be too tall, that the building construction is going to be, you know, I don't know. I can't say what the TCO is going to be doing. And the TCO could,
and I don't either. I have,
I
no-
would think that,
I don't know what that looks like.
I think that would make you going through the TCO a lot better you've had that information now.
Tony, that's a good point. Chris, can you explain that? If, you know, he doesn't know what the building looks like, but we're being asked to approve a building. What would be the next phase of that? How does the community,
You would be,
how does the
what
community
what
know
we're
what they
talking
get?
about is the use of the property, and somewhat the aesthetics, because I think Mr. Buchanan was saying that some look less industrial now. And I think his comment, correct me if I'm wrong, is everything is open air now. Everything is outside. There is no building. So once you have a building, then some of that area, some of this equipment and spools and everything are going to go inside. I think that was your comment of making it less industrial than it is now. With that being said, if the use is approved, then the site plan itself and building elevations would have to get a approval of site plan itself from the tourism corridor overlay pertaining to Route 60. And then also they would have to get a certificate of appropriateness from the TCO for the proposed improvements, including building elevations, exterior color schemes, building materials. You know, they review all that. I agree with you that I think I don't think it's out of our wheelhouse, if you will, to have some of that information. I'd have to confer with Mr. Dryden, but some of that information associated with the special use permit itself as a condition that the building has to be no more than X number of feet tall, you know, the earth tone colors, whatever it may be.
You do have the right and actually the obligation to consider the comprehensive plan, how it fits within the comprehensive plan, and that would include some of these view shed and other the issues that apply there. So you do have the ability to request some of the information that you're requesting now, or some more certainty on some of that. Now, to keep in mind, the TCO is tasked with some of those things too. And normally, if I understand correctly, that happens after the special exception process goes through. Then it has to go through TCO. As a condition, you have to go through the TCO process in order to maintain your special exception.
Yes.
So part of that might be to also get a better feel for what the TCO would be asking and whether that meets what you would anticipate. Because sometimes from a practical point of view, applicants won't be able to have complete plans out and elevations.
So if we have a recommendation from TCO,
that's something to consider. But you do have the power to be asking for some of this information. We can't ask for everything. That wouldn't be the normal process. But it has to be in accordance with the comprehensive plan. That's one thing you actually are required to consider.
Okay.
And what you are doing obviously is making recommendations to the board supervisors.
Other comments?
Just to piggyback off of that,
Yep.
you know, the comprehensive plan, of course, is a somewhat a philosophical document. It does not change. And as we talked about through the comprehensive plan amendment process we did last year, it does not change the permitted uses nor the uses by special exception in the agricultural zones. In this case, a rural area in portions of Carr Street, let's put it that way.
Okay. Well, this discussion will be continued, and I think we should do a lot of homework before then, so we come in well organized.
I'm expecting the homework being done, at least for things I want by the applicant.
We should need to inform them then of what we would like them to do. So that's, the further dialogue in between now and the next meeting as a matter of public record, of course, but so we can proceed quicker instead of getting too delayed. But I didn't say that very well, but need to have a dialogue in between now and then.
Yeah, and that can be done is just to clarify, the individual commissioners can make requests directly to Chris or gather other information, in groups of larger than two of you. We can't make a public meeting out of it. So but as long as you individually or in groups of two inquire, that's fine.
Thank you, John. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. All right. Next item on the agenda is County of Rockbridge Public Hearing Zoning Text Amendment to amend the regulations to provide for the use of a private school as a use by special exception in the B1 zoning district.
Yes, thank you. At the December 11th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission discussed a zoning text amendment to provide for private schools as a use by special exception in the general business zoning district under the current ordinance, section 605.03-33 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations provides for business and vocational schools as a permitted use in the business zoning. However, there are currently no provisions for a private school in the business zoning. Of course, this was scheduled to be heard. The public hearing was scheduled to be at the February meeting. After it aired, I didn't advertise for the public hearing in January. But with that being said, we're holding a public hearing tonight on the proposed zoning text amendment. In your package and available online is a very simple zoning text amendment. As far as language goes, I should say, is a very simple zoning text amendment that just provides the use as private schools in red as a use by special exception.
At this time, Chris, we're going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone physically present who would like to speak?
There's no one signed up, but we'll recognize anyone at this time. Let me check online. There are no attendees left. No online, I'm sorry.
No further comments. We will close the public hearing. We got it right this time, I hope. All right. So are we going to do anything with that?
I apologize. We don't have a pre-prepared motion for this one. With that being said, it would be appropriate if the Planning Commission is willing to make a motion to approve the zoning text amendment for private schools in the business zone as submitted.
I make a recommendation to add 605-03.03-27 schools private to the zoning text amendment B1.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
A second.
We have a motion in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. All right, and let's see now. There's going to be a preliminary discussion for the proposed expansion improvements to the Lexington Golf and Country Club, but I need to say something here.
Okay.
I'm a member of the country club, so I have to abstain from all matters, discussions, or voting related to a special exception for the proposed expansion improvements to the Lexington Golf and Country Club and any continuance or review or consideration in subsequent meetings. And my disclosure statement required under Virginia Code Section 2.2-3115 F is on file with the Secretary of the Planning Commission. You're on.
Hold on.
I'd like to take a mention.
Oh, he
Okay.
needs to
What's that?
utilize the facilities.
A short break?
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. We'll take a 2-minute recess. Or not recess, 2-minute break, whatever it is.
We already gave the one signature.
Thank you.
Robert's Rules of Order.
He really is a point of loss.
Test. Thought I broke it.
See how things go.
Well, we have the decommissioning plan date, yes. Except, so this is really prior to. Boulders and yes. Yes. Yep. Yeah, it's yeah, yeah, Chris. Yeah, watch on TV. Good stuff. Yeah, it's interesting. Oh, because I said to you. I said, yeah, but- That's all we got. Yeah. Yes, right.
Oh, no.
We had a blank.
That's the.
I've already-
makes the
I've
world
already
go
heard all
round.
I know. All right, let's.
Yeah, you, I think you did fine on it. I think
Sure.
we just need to,
Let's go ahead and get started.
I think we could have closed, we could have continued here. No, it's just, it's good. I do the things where I have to refresh my knowledge of Robert's Rules of Order, make sure we do it right. But we're okay. We're okay.
Don't worry, I'm not gonna pull it away.
Might still be. Might still be.
I know how finance goes from there.
There's a water fountain. Yeah.
I know how finance goes. We finance stuff like that.
So you're replacing me?
No,
Gee.
but I don't need an electric law filter.
Gotta come back and look at that. Isn't the last thing, right?
He's got to close this out, so. No, he's here, I'm not doing it.
You are the vice chair.
Okay, so I guess we'll reconvene the meeting. The next agenda item is a preliminary discussion on a special exception for the proposed expansion improvements of the Lexington Golf and Country Club. And I assume we have a presentation.
Yes, just a very brief overview. LGCC and W&L Joint Venture LLC, mailing address of 141 Country Club Road, Lexington, Virginia, is preparing a special exception application for proposed improvement / expansion of the existing Lexington Golf and Country Club. Also LGCC, obviously. The property consists of 6 total tax parcels within the county that consists of 131.894 acres per tax records. The portion of the existing country club that is in the county is located in the general residential zoning district. Lexington Golf and Country Club is considered a legal non-conforming use in the R1 district. I will note a portion of the existing golf course, 21.72 acres per city tax records, is located in the city of Lexington. On October 2020, in anticipation for the proposed expansion, a zoning text amendment was defined for country clubs and provided for the use by special exception in the R1 zoning district. I gave you the definition in the agenda item, I should say. I gave you the definition of the country club and brief, essentially, due to the scope of the improvements, the applicant and staff felt it'd be beneficial to have a preliminary discussion with the planning commission prior to the special application being placed on the agenda. This would provide any preliminary feedback that you all may have with in this case, Mr. Russell Orson here representing the project. You guys have two maps.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll pull those up. You can stay there. We can never hear you when you walk over the screen.
That's why I go over there. So I'm going to jump around a lot, so please feel free to interrupt me with questions as we go. So if we could start with the golf course master plan.
All right.
So our golf course architect is Lester George, and he did this in 2020, and the design hasn't changed since then. Of course, he has construction drawings now rather than a master plan, which is what you're looking at here. If you're familiar at all with the area, down at the bottom center is the country club campus. You can see the pool, the L-shaped pool there. You can see the tennis courts. The road is not labeled there, but of course, New Cameron Drive runs in front of it. And so this is the new golf course that Lester has designed. It's similar to the existing course, and I don't know how familiar you guys are with the existing course. And if you're not, it's probably not that interesting to you. What this accomplishes is it gets the practice facility into the middle of the course rather than the other side of the road. So if you look kind of in the lower right portion of the course, you can see that kind of S-shaped fairway with the practice greens on it, and to the left of that is the practice tee box. And so what that did is took away hole number 8, the way it currently is. So we added a par 3 over after the 5th hole, and then did away with number 8, and number 9 actually goes, the green of number 9 is actually where the shed is currently. So that'll be kind of exciting.
So now we're driving over the shed,
The
or
shed-
trying to.
The shed will be completely
Okay.
gone. The green
Okay.
will be literally where the shed is currently. So you'll be going across the creek kind of diagonally
Okay.
through that green. I'm trying to think of other parts of the course that you might be interested in. You can see that the pond changes shape a bit, the main pond, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. The pond at number 4 stays. The pond at number 17 stays. Both of them get reworked a little bit, but they stay. So Lester George did this design, and his engineer is Eric Allen, who's out of Richmond, Virginia, and he's done the construction drawings for this for the erosion sediment control and stormwater management. So those plans are under review currently with the review authority. So let's look at the other sheet. The other sheet is the master plan for what I'll call the campus, the club campus. And this one, the road is labeled, so you can see New Cameron Road running through the middle. Country Club Drive is off to the right. I guess I'll just take the numbers in order. The existing clubhouse is going to be demolished, and we'll have a new clubhouse. It's going to be to the right of where the pool is currently, so it kind of sits on that corner, if you will, so it can look down at the 9th green. It can also look out on the 1st, 10th, and 18th from the clubhouse. Number 2 is the new cart barn. where of course we'll store carts. We expect to have all electrical carts. Number 3, there's 2 number 3s there because it's the new event pavilion and the event lawn. The pavilion will seat about 125 people. No walls, a roof, but no walls for events. Number 4 is the new golf performance center. You can see it's up at the top of the sheet. It's where the practice tee that we looked at earlier and looking up the practice fairway. That'll have indoor simulators and indoor driving bays where you can drive from indoors to outdoors. And of course, WNL will use that, but we can use that as well. Number 5 just says new club arrival. The entrance changes just a little bit. It moves just slightly down New Cameron from where it is currently. So then the other side where the current practice facility is on the other side of the road, number 6, you can see is the new pool. Number 7 is new pickleball courts that go in the first thing. Not necessarily. Number 8 is a playground for the kids that are over there at the pool. You can also see that there's parking over there. The parking is there so that we don't have, if you're going to the pool, you're going to go over there and you're going to park.
That is parking there between directly between 5 and 6. That's not; those are not golf carts.
That's correct. That's parking. That's all that is. And so there's 2 bays of parking there. We figure we'll have 1 bay of parking. That's the kind of the grayish pinkish color first, and then as we need more, there's a 2nd bay available to expand. We don't want a lot of people walking across the street, of course, so that's why the parking is over there with the pool. So that's 6, 7, 8, 9 new maintenance facilities. So the new maintenance facility is down. If you come down Country Club Drive and turn right on Ruffner, then the current 8th green is on your left. That's where the new maintenance facility will be, is where the 8th green is currently. Number 10, so future golf cottage. So a lot of this is what we want to do right now. In fact, everything that I just talked about is a now thing. It might, some things will go first and some things will go second, but we also have future golf cottages. We're hoping that there will be a need for golf cottages for people to actually come and stay, either to watch their kids play in a NCAA event, or people that this is going to be a really nice course that will want to come and spend a weekend or something and play golf. So you can see number 10 is the future golf cottages, and they're another set. You can barely see them because they're under that green arc over there on the left. Is also some cottages. We're saving that space for cottages, hoping that we're going to need them. And then, of course, important to the neighbors, and that's why we put it on here. It's just that there's certain places where we know we will absolutely be putting buffers to screen down there at the maintenance facility.
Is that like Augusta down this way on 11?
What's that?
Toward the bullet point 11, is that like Augusta Court? I'm just moving everything. I know where you're talking about the
what is that?
the
Troy?
maintenance
Is that
facility. I know
Augusta?
where 8 is. So is that Augusta down through there that way, like where bullet point 11 is, and the buffering
Yeah, it's
possibly?
the next cul-de-sac
Okay.
after you go past the practice green.
Yeah,
Is that called Augusta?
I think it is.
I think it is too.
I'm just trying to,
Yep.
because I'm assuming the existing structure is kind of moved down a little bit closer to the waterfront, or is it about the same spot where the existing clubhouse is?
No, the new clubhouse
Yeah.
is well to the right of the existing clubhouse. It's to the right of the pool.
Okay, so it's almost where the pool, you're pushing everything to the right a little bit?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct. So really the pavilion's gonna be close to where the clubhouse is currently.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is Augusta. The first after you pass the existing entrance to the country club, your immediate right is Augusta Court.
Yeah. So that's what we're calling the verticals. That's the buildings that we're doing. The firm that we hired, KDC, to do the architectural work is working right now on on all of those things. And we'll probably be moving ahead. Well, let me start with the golf course. So these are the things that are published and are known. We are going to start managing the turf grass in July, which basically means killing the grasses that we don't want, which is all of them because it gets all new different types of turf. We'll continue to play on it for a few months until it just gets unplayable. Then we hope to start with the main earthwork in late this year and then into next year. Then the course will be closed until Memorial Day of 27. And we'll have our grand opening Memorial Day. That's the plan. How we're going to stage the demolition and construction of the clubhouses is yet to be determined. And how we're going to be able to keep members when we don't have anything for them to do is kind of important. There's a lot of work to structure the membership such that we are disincentivizing leaving for 2 years, because there will be a significant initiation fee once the course is redone. Chris, what else should I cover?
I think that's a good overview of the proposed improvements. I will say that as far as to date, the concern staff has received has been associated with stormwater quantity and quality, which I've obviously talked with Russ about, shared those concerns, and then traffic mitigation through the construction project.
So yeah, so I should talk about both of those. So there is going to be, at the public hearing, there's going to be significant opposition, I think, not necessarily to the special exception, but to the use of standard for golf courses, herbicides and insecticides and whatnot. And I don't think I'll be able to address that, even that. Peter Danaher is our golf course superintendent by education and by profession. He is excellent and learned in all of those things and licensed in all of those things. And he's very careful and he does a great job, and it's industry standard stuff. So I don't know that we're going to be able to address people saying, yes, that's what they usually use on golf courses, but we don't want them to do it on this course. It's going to be maybe a tough public hearing. I'm not sure. We'll see. That's why I kind of like being here right now to talk about that. The plans, I'm going to bring the plans for the public hearing. The plans are voluminous. The calculations are voluminous. The review for stormwater, as you guys have heard tonight from other people, they said, oh, our stormwater, we didn't get stormwater approved for 8 months or whatever it is. It's a significant review. So when you get an approval for stormwater, especially for a project like this, it's very well designed. It just is. We beginning in 2020, in fact, we got all of the jurisdictional waters delineated. We got the Corps of Engineers to confirm our delineations. Any place that we touch a creek or a wetland, we have to get a permit to do that. All of those permits are under review at this time, so those will all be in place. Then once the golf course plan they're moving on that, the other things will be a normal site plan. So my firm will be doing the normal site plans for the clubhouse, for the maintenance facility, for all of the vertical structures and the things that normally come before you guys. And so really it's not a TCO thing. So all the site plans will come here. So you'll be seeing it again as a construction drawing site plan. Really, I should have started with this. It's kind of odd. We're here for a special exception for a golf course, for a country club at that location. How we got here after however many years, 70 years, it's kind of weird that we're a non-conforming use, but we are. But as a land use decision, as a special exception, as a land use decision, I think it's an excellent place for a golf course.
Considering it's already there.
considering it's been there for 70 years, 60 years. Yeah, I think it's great. Of course, all the people, all those subdivisions weren't there, so all those people went out there to live in those subdivisions to be next to a golf course. So I think they're going to be very well pleased with I always want to say world class. I can't imagine it's a world class, but this is going to be one of the best courses in Virginia. It truly is. It's public. Just the golf course is 12 million. It's going to be super. It's going to be super.
When anticipate it coming to us?
What's that?
When do we anticipate it coming to us
For site plans?
for
special
special
exception, I think
exception?
the question is.
Oh, the very next meeting, I hope. I really thought we were going to do a public hearing tonight, but in working with Chris, he'd gotten a lot of concerns from neighbors. And we both thought it would be good to just chat with this, thinking that this would be more informal. But yeah, your very next meeting, I'm ready to go.
Can I ask why nobody from the leadership of the group is here tonight?
Leadership of what group?
Of whatever the name of the
I'm on the board of the country club.
what's that?
I'm on the board.
Oh,
of the
okay. So
country
you're
club.
okay. Okay.
So-
I'm sorry. I thought you were doing your work stuff.
I've got a couple hats on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
What's the water runoff? What's the direct runoff into which creek over there?
So there's 3 creeks there that form Woods Creek. And there's the one that comes, again, if you're not familiar with the course, but it comes from behind 16T.
Yeah, okay.
That creek has about a 440 acre watershed, and it includes water that is piped from, and I'm still a little unclear on this, but it's from the old reservoir and it's from Brushy Hill Springs. So literally about 1,500 feet upstream, there's a large pipe that just
Pours out.
and it forms that creek. And so there's that creek, and then there's the creek that comes from the Route 251 side. And that's got about a 330 acre watershed. It comes, right along Country Club Road. You can see as you drive down, there's that creek on the right. And then the main branch that comes through the pond on 18 has about a 983 acre watershed. And, it of course comes under the main road of the subdivision that's there now, the green, and then it fills that pond. And then right below the pond where the pond outlets, the creek from Country Club comes in, and the creek that's coming down past 16 goes under one in that pipe, and then it daylights, and then they form Woods Creek right there below the dam. So it's run off to all 3 of those creeks.
And I have displayed the USGS quad to attempt to show this is the confluence of all 3 here. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Orson. And so this is identified as Woods Creek coming up this way.
I think the confluence of those 3 makes Woods Creek.
So I see what you're saying.
Thank you. Any other questions? Chairman, you want to attempt to close this out?
So if I may though, so if what happens, what I think is going to happen at the next meeting, and we have a lot of environmental concerns, of course, I'm going to say that we've had significant review and almost approval, pending approvals. We're going to have to get permits for everything, of course. And I'm probably going to leave it at that. And then a lot of people are going to say, but what about glyphosate? What about this? What about that? And I just don't know that I'm going to address it. I mean, I think this is a land use issue, and those things are addressed by others well. And so I think those are just going to get left hanging unless you guys have some advice.
The one thing I will state is the approval contingent upon, and this one will, I assume, have more contingencies on the approval as far as the regulatory process that y'all will have to go to implement the plan. The Army Corps of Engineers,
Yeah,
those type of things.
and I understand putting those on there, but they're neither here nor there. You got to do it anyway. I mean, you can make it contingent on me driving the speed limit, but I got to do it anyway.
Sure, and that would just add an extra layer, as we do for other projects. So VDOT approval, it's got to be happening. Anything, ENS approval is just an extra step to the special exception permit itself. Or I should say an extra step. It would be the approval of the special exception would be contingent upon those other approvals.
Of course, it's a special exception, so you can put conditions on it. And those would certainly be benign.
And the benefit of those are, for some reason, the project falls through and they don't get that, then the special exception could be pulled. And so it doesn't sit out there attached. So it's conditioned upon those things being done.
Mentioned herbicides and stormwater and runoff might be a concern from some of the public neighbors. Is there been any talk about buffering any of the streams?
The Woods Creek along number 3 has a buffer that will mostly remain. For most of the golf course, there will be no buffer. Just the nature of the golf course is when you hit a shot, you're not hitting it through a gully, through the woods. And when you come up short, it rolls back into the creek. It doesn't go into the woods. So there will not be buffers. There will certainly be buffers from the application of different things depending on their labels, but no real buffers.
Just a rough, thicker grass.
It'll be a rough, then a fairway. That'll be it. Yeah. Irrigation system is going to be upgraded. We're going to use less water than we do now. It'll do a good job, and our irrigation system is at the end of its life anyway. So
does that come out of the ponds, or?
It does. It comes out of the pond on 18. And years ago, Mr. Woody and some other guys put in a pipe that actually connects the creek where it crosses the fairway there on number 10. There's a pipe there, and it actually brings some water down into that pond to augment it. And that had gotten clogged over the years. And so we replaced that this summer. And that, when the pond was really low, when we had that dry period, it really brought that pond back. So yeah, the irrigation is out of the pond on 18. Yep. You guys had a long night, so thanks for seeing me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Fun. You get overtime. I do.
You know what? I could get home to
Retired. Okay.
Second.
Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.